So I'm going to put Napoli in this bed. One of the things that decided me on that is that Napoli is my favoured autumn carrot. So I sow it in October, late October, for a harvest in spring. And I want to do a germination test on them because I've got a big packet of them for moles. And the reason is because, you know, when you're overwintering something like that, there is quite a difference between short periods of time. So even a couple of weeks, the difference between the end of October and the middle of November can make quite a significant difference in the timing or success, really, of a late carrot sowing. So you want to be confident that they're going to germinate, and I probably will do a germination test closer to the time as well, but it'd be nice to do one now, I think. Napoli is a really nice carrot as well for harvesting after a frost. Sweetens up beautifully. So these are the carrots. 2,500. I don't really need 2,500, but these aren't pelleted, so I'll have to thin these out a bit. Actually, what I do normally when I'm doing pelleted seeds, which I've just forgotten, is I like to sow them in a broader drill. So I'll just widen that drill up a bit. I find it's a lot easier to sow and thin in a broad drill, and especially as these carrots are to be harvested kind of small and sweet. I'm kind of taking kind of slight inspiration here from Elliot Coleman, who calls these candy carrots, and he sows them in August, because even though it's colder up there in winter, it's warmer in summer. So he's in Canada. I think he's in Canada. Either that or he's in sort of north east, is he? I don't know. Somewhere in the north of the US anyway. And their light levels are way higher than ours. So everything keeps growing for an extra month. So when you're sowing in a broad drill like this, the objective is to get the same density as you would when you're sowing in a narrow drill, but kind of distributed over a wider area, which makes it easier for the carrots to push apart if you decided not to thin them too much, but it also makes it easier to thin them because they're not so close together. I just get the compost folded over, and I'm aiming for 1 centimetre of compost because it's showery still. It was showery last week. They've not germinated yet, but it's showery again this week. And showery weather, sunny showery weather, is just kind of ideal for carrot germination. The ground's always moist, although not very moist actually right now, but it is moist. And it's warm-ish with the sunshine. So I should think there'll be about 10 days to germination. So in one of my recent videos we had a bit of a debate about where the myth of only watering the drills and not the whole bed comes from. And I hypothesised that it was because when you're in weedy soil, if you only water the drills, then you're going to get less weed germination. And somebody else hypothesized it was because when you water the whole bed, then potentially you're going to dislodge the seeds. I don't think that's the reason, but it would be interesting to know if anybody else has any hypotheses. Obviously right now it's showery weather, so the beds are getting watered anyway, and every day. So if weeds are going to germinate, they're going to germinate, so that's not really an issue. So I've just finished harvesting the last of the early red cabbages. So we've had red cabbages for quite a while now, and these are really nice size. Very happy with these. And kind of extra bonus that I got, which I wasn't expecting, was I got all these little red cabbages as well as these little sort of green cabbages as well that grew on the stem after I'd harvested the green cabbage hearts. So yeah, fussed to bits with those. Going to get on now and plant the purple sprouting broccoli in this bed and get it netted up, probably with this net here, because you know, right on cue there's a cabbage white butterfly. So I pricked these purple sprouting broccoli out into these kind of deep pots, kind of like a root trainer from Containerwise. I've done a video all about the Containerwise range actually that you might like to look at. It's quite interesting, these. They've grown a bit leggy because whilst there's a decent amount of soil in these root trainers, it does mean that the plants are sort of crammed in together. So I'm going to have to plant them quite deep, but also, you know, because they're in a root trainer, they're also quite deep. So I've used my bulb planter and I've kind of gone down and taken 2 cores out. So just move that out of the way. So I've kind of taken the first core out and then gone right down, taken the second core out, like that. So these holes are really deep, as you can see, like down to there, that sort of depth. So these are claret. I'm going to put 5 clarets in, and I'm kind of going to take the healthiest looking of them. So let's just have a quick look at the actual results of growing in these root trainers. So you can see, hopefully, that the root trainers have got these ridges, and the roots have kind of grown, instead of spiraling round, they've grown nicely down these ridges. Good root system, no real issues with the way that they've grown. They've air pruned at the bottom quite nicely, and they kind of fit quite nicely into these holes as well. So, you know, they're going about that deep. So I think they're going to be okay. So I'm going to put 5 claret in. I'm going to put 3 red admiral and 2 red fire, and then I'm going to have 3 other beds as well with a mix of these varieties. And the varieties have been chosen to give a nice long successional harvest of these plants. Let's just get another one out, have a look. Yeah, I do like the root system on them. As I said, the slight downside is they are a little bit leggy, but yeah, they're pretty good. This was these were sown in my own homemade compost as well, and so it's got worms in it. So I'm going to get on with those. So I watered these in and that softened the soil up, so I'm going to now make little moats around the plants for subsequent waterings, just to stop all the water running away. I do think this is worth it, worth the extra effort. Because otherwise you end up watering the whole bed and not the root zone of the individual plants. I don't tend to interplant much into these because they grow so quickly that nothing else really can grow to maturity in time. And the strawberries have pretty much finished now. These are the second earlies, so they're in no need of this net. So we'll pop this off. There we go. I do find the convenience of these nets on hinges to be really great, and the fact that all the beds open onto each other makes it really easy to work with. I just like them to get started with a bit of protection from the butterflies. Once they've got to sort of 6 weeks old or thereabouts, they seem to be okay, just with the help from being sprayed with BT every couple of weeks. There we go, all done. So hopefully that will rest on there, okay? That's good. So in the end I decided to plant all the claret in that bed, and I'm going to put the earlier varieties in this bed. And this is kind of aborted lettuce bed really. We had the peas in this bed until a few days ago, and the peas kind of fell over the top of the lettuces, and so the lettuces just grew really leggy and weak, so we only got a little harvest off them, but we've got loads of lettuce at the moment, so I didn't really care. But we got a good crop of turnips actually off this bed, which was a bit of a bonus. And I don't like not having living roots in the soil of some description, so having those lettuces in, you know, just kept the bed alive, kept the soil microorganisms happy, even if we only got a small harvest off them. And there's a few more turnips there actually, forgotten I'd put those in. So in this bed we've got the red fire, and then red fire and red admiral. So yeah, quite a nice selection of purple sprouting broccoli there, and we've got one more bed to do on my plot of the second succession, which we'll do in sort of 2 or 3 weeks time, I guess. So now just need to take this cover off, which didn't need to be over these onions, but it was just there just to store the net really. And it's had the advantage actually that they didn't blow over in the really high winds that we've had, whereas all the main crop ones are all flattened, which is not really very good. at this time of year, but you know, it is what it is. So yeah, get this moved over. That's good. So I did get the net on the carrots, and they're actually starting to germinate. I'll show you those next week, once they should be all up by then. And I just want to get the last few of these early-ish onions out. So these are the tough ball that I put in December. Well, sowed them in December, planted them out sort of February, March time, I think. And they've done all right. You know, they're not huge, obviously. You wouldn't expect them to be. But I just find it's a useful hedge, you know, because I have had really bad experiences in the past with my main crop onions all kind of going to seed on me. And by doing these tough balls, I kind of, you know, have about enough to sort of scrape through the year. If I were to lose my main crops. So it's kind of worth it for me. I know some people don't like doing overwintered onions just because, you know, they're a bit more unreliable. But, you know, as I just mentioned, you know, that main crops can be unreliable as well. So I think that was worth doing. I only tied up the bed for about a month after the lettuces came out. Well, I made it through the harvest day. I've got a summer cold, you know, sore throat, cough, all that. So I'm not feeling very good, so I'm very pleased to have got all this finished. And again, we kind of hit our target. We just managed to sort of scrape through a full table full, which is kind of what we want. So let me just quickly scan you through it. So my beloved Brussels sprouts, summer Brussels sprouts, which I really love. These are the little red cabbages, and actually these grew at the same time as the red cabbage, so I didn't have to leave the red cabbages in order to get those. And similar sort of thing there with green cabbages, potatoes, broad beans. We're only just picking the little ones now because the big ones are kind of gone over, so we're just going to compost those. Dwarf French beans, cobra, sprite and amethyst. We're just picking the dregs of the onions, so these are kind of like the last of, well, not the last, but the small overwintered onions and the small Leela bulbing onions. These are just like overgrown salad onions, basically. I'm saving the larger onions for storage. Last of the turnips for a while. Obviously loads of beetroot. Did a couple of test picks of the parsnips, so they're looking actually quite nice. And these are the last of the carrots from the containers, so I'm pleased to be finished with those. It's back from a sneezing fit. Probably the last of the peas now. These are the last two red cabbages. We've got them wrapped up because I want these to last for the next 2 or 3 weeks in the fridge. And that's the last of the purple cauliflowers for a few months, actually. You know, we are a few months away from their successors. We're pretty short now of flowering brassicas, but we will have side shoots off the calabrese next week. These are the one ball courgettes, really lovely. These are the Zephyr courgettes. These are the first picks off the big long one is a tromboncino, and the little one is a centre cut. I always like to take a few little ones off at the start, just to kind of encourage the plants to keep going. Last of the spinach until the New Zealand spinach, which will be next week. So we won't go without spinach. Colette leaves, looking lovely. Brussels sprout leaves, looking just as lovely. And red curly kale. And we kind of leave our main crop kale now to sort of grow on and strengthen, rather than picking it too hard all the way through summer, because we've got all these other brassicas, so we don't really mind for a while. That's the first proper pick anyway, of the new season carrots grown in the ground. So looking forward to having those in my salads. Tomatoes, these are the early tomatoes. The plants are looking awful, but they're still throwing out tomatoes. But they really struggled because they were grown in that dodgy compost that had no roots. So they developed no roots, and so the plants are really weak. But in a way, I suppose it doesn't really matter as long as you're getting tomatoes off them. Cucumbers kicking in now, so that's about the number of cucumbers we need for the salads, but not enough for snacking. Obviously bits of garlic. Look at this. These are the peppers harvested from the plants, again, that were grown in the dodgy compost that had no roots, and the plants are so weak. This is the best that they can kind of muster. It's a pitiful sight, really. Gooseberries, we don't normally have fruit on the table because, as I'm always saying, the fruit gets kind of processed as we pick it. But I did pick these yesterday, so those lovely red gooseberries. I really like these, because they're smooth. There's no kind of fur on them. The kids like them as well. But I'm still partial to the good old traditional gooseberry. And these are the salad mixes. So no, I haven't made them up obviously yet. I'll be adding the tomatoes and the peppers and the cucumbers and the carrots to those to make up quite a nice salad. But they have got the golden purslane in already, which, as everybody knows, is one of my favourites. So yeah, not a bad harvest. So it's been a terrible week for me again. Anyway, we're done. And I did forget the salad onions and the leeks and the celery.